Peter, I don't think you're the devil. Here on Feature Please, a vile visit to Bajor. Sorry. My name is Joseph.
I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, as a matter of some business before we get to our season 1 finale of Deep Space Nine, crazy, is that I mentioned last week that we have a GoFundMe going for one of our fans, June, who unfortunately had her life deeply impacted as a consequence of Hurricane Helene, and talking to her house, her vehicles, her livelihood has all been destroyed. So we have tried to do what we can for her, and we've had some small successes already, and this GoFundMe represents hopefully an opportunity for everybody to demonstrate whatever generosity they're capable of to assist a member of our very small but hopefully tight listener community in an hour of tremendous need. So it's been everywhere. I've put it on Twitter. I've put it on Facebook. I've commented on our show postings. I'm going to be putting in the descriptions, and we'll obviously make a bigger deal of this when we do our live rip, which you'll hear a week after this episode comes out. Thank you so much to everyone who's already donated. Generosity is already appreciated, and hopefully we can help June out as much as we can. With that out of the way, Peter, what did we watch this week?
Season 1, episode 20, In the Hands of the Prophets, first aired June 20th, 1993. This is written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe, directed by Dave Livingston. 20 episodes.
That's
not
it.
The 26ers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, between season 4 of Enterprise, which should not have existed, and only did so because of syndication or something with reruns or something, right?
Well, it's kind of like the death throes of the UPN syndication.
They wanted to get that 100 episodes.
They wanted to get one more season in because they felt like they could have a package that. Very true.
And that was a short season too. That was 18 episodes?
I might have been 20 as well. I don't remember.
These ones flew, man.
Yeah.
I think about the slog it was to get through season 1 of Voyager and Enterprise, and this thing just fucking flew. And it's not like there were bangers all over the place this season, right? Like actually looking at my ranking chart, there's a fair amount of meh in there. And that ain't bad for a season 1 of a Star Trek show. And there was a fair amount of goods. And every episode brought something new in. I don't want to fall too deep into our rip here. But just the continuity and the willingness to reflect on past episodes as moving forward just did this thing all the favors because of how many characters there were and just little minor stuff being fun things to get built on later. And now here we are in an episode about school curriculum.
A school curriculum and frankly returning to the main meta plot of DS9, which honestly season 1 didn't have much of. And it's crazy to think from my perspective of how much of this meta plot winds up getting woven into the show from this point forward. But it is kind of like that learning curve, right? Like trying to figure out what the show's about. And between Duet last week and In the Hands of the Prophets, I feel like the end of season 1 is where they kind of crack the code of what the show is going to be about. We're going to have the big dramatic moments. We're going to tell complicated morality tales. We're going to use politics in a way that makes sense for the Trek universe. We're going to make it feel more lived in that way. We're going to rely on big, good performances coming out of the actors we've picked for these roles. And also, we do have a very kind of interesting thing we're doing here with religion and a planet that isn't in the Federation, and the Federation wants it to, and it doesn't know if it wants to join yet. And the consequences of this whole wormhole thing happening, and it's carrying not just a social or economic consequence, but a spiritual one too. And how Cisco and what happened with him and Emissary factors into that. And of course, as I teased last week, it brings us to the greatest villain Star Trek will ever produce. Undefeatable in the person of Vedek Winn. You doubted me when I said the Queen of Burns has nothing on Vedek Winn. After her first episode, do you think maybe I have a point?
No, I'm still Team Seska. I'm sure Winn gets up there after a couple seasons. But Seska, the Obsidian Order, Spider, still strong in the lead here, winning. I see the foundations of what she'll be. And I don't have a lot of notes on this episode because it was just very easy to watch and be in the moment.
Oh, sure. No,
Um,
and we will. But before we launch into the episode itself, I think I need to state the following when it comes to Seska versus Winn. Seska is cool. Seska was a spy who broke bad when put into an untenable situation and was just an awful bitch to deal with, and clearly smarter than most of the Voyager crew. And we loved her and appreciated her because she carried us through some dark times in the Voyager timeline. She was something to look forward to. She had some fun plans. But in her first episode, Vedek Winn stages both a terrorist bombing and an attempted assassination of a fellow religious leader. Like, come on. There's a level of villainy that she is showing up with that's so much more than Seska ever tried.
Winn is coming in as a clear bad guy piece of shit. And I think the fun and the good part about Seska is that they could have worked with her. It didn't have to be that way. You know, there were options on the table, and I think like any good villain, she was the good guy in a different version. And I guess you can kind of say the same things about Vedek Winn, that, you know, maybe had Kiko changed her curriculum to omit wormhole discussion or whatever.
I think you're onto something there. I don't think Vedek Winn's plan in this episode, as we will discuss, is so intricate and so vile that it does not belie a version of events where things could have gone better. You're right. Like, Seska could have come clean and said, okay, I'm a Cardassian agent. Sorry.
Seska wanted to work with the crew.
Yeah.
Seska only turned the Kazon once it became clear that, frankly, I think Seska was right that Janeway had screws loose and did not have the best intentions for the crew, insofar as to go on to forge an alliance with the Borg and endanger the entire Alpha and Beta, the entire galaxy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
As time went on, Seska's predictions and concerns became more and more true. But Seska did not want to throw in with the fucking hillbilly Kazon and fly around in their ghetto hoopties, stinking of weed and mac and cheese. Like,
this is the next best option. Yeah.
Vedek Winn, you don't have stuff on hand to bomb a school and have your assassin out in the crowd and also have an option of peace on the table. I think even had Keiko changed the curriculum and taken some of the outs that Vedek Winn presents in this episode, there still would have been something to like escalate. Peace was never an option with her.
Yeah, no, those outs were presented with the intention of them being rejected. It was all strategic on her part. Let's get into it, right? Like,
I'm curious, real quick though, like, is she being set up? Oh, God, how long is this? Jesus Christ! Look at this wiki. Give me a second. If I were to print this, no, for this episode,
just for the episode, yeah,
18 pages.
That's a lot. I read it. Don't worry.
Do they talk about if they are setting her up as an arch villain here, or is she just an interesting character passing through that might have more interactions later?
There's very much the intention of turning her into a recurring character from this point forward. They knew they needed to return to the Bajoran spiritual religious issue and how that impacts the Federation and their need to bring them into the Federation, and also what this has to do with the prophets and the wormhole. And since they took Kaiopaka off the table, they kind of got presented with this opportunity. They got this opportunity to say, we can start something here and create drama around this. And so Vedek Winn was made with the intention that she would continue to be a villainous presence within the Deep Space Nine story from this point forward. I don't think they necessarily knew exactly what the fuck they were going to do from this point forward, but they knew enough. I mean, she's in 14 episodes of the show ultimately.
Not a lot.
But each one's a impactful appearance. We'll say that.
It's obvious from the beginning, this episode, she is being built as an arch villain. And, if we're going to compare her against the Burn Queen Seska, I think peace could have been an option with Seska, and Seska's descent into villainy was gradual and forced by events and circumstances, whereas this Kai Winn is just like, the bad guy has entered chat. And there is no stopping the fact that this will be the bad guy. So where we open up?
We open with actually Miles and Keiko hanging out on the promenade and getting a gymnastic, which looks like
a cow dung.
Yeah, it looks like a very melty popsicle, but
like
cow
a big
dung works
chunk
too.
Of meat.
And it's mostly to set up Miles hanging out with his hottie Bajoran assistant Neela, and Keiko giving her a ration of shit over how much he seems to like her.
Neela's fucking hot. They've never really given her a lot of camera time, up close and personal. She's played by Robin Christopher, who I think her other big thing is
she's in soap operas.
All My Children. She's in 84 episodes.
Yes.
522 episodes of General Hospital.
Yes. She was a soap opera actress.
Very easy on the eyes.
90s hottie all the way.
And then some. And we've noticed her, or at least I thought we noticed her, because I want to say this feels like the third or fourth episode she's been in. She's only been in 2, so at some point there was a different...
Correct. And this actually makes a comment about that. So there was the Bajoran assistant 2 episodes ago who was supposed to be this character. Okay. There was supposed to be set up that there was this person that showed up in 2 episodes in a row and then showed up in this one. But they didn't like that actress, and they mentioned this when they were talking about Neela, is is this one working out better? It was in reference to the fact they had to fire the prior actress. So this lady only showed up in Duet briefly. But the lingering idea you have of did I see this person multiple times? That was actually the intention. They just got a kind of a bum actress that they didn't end up being able to reuse.
Which is funny because you could have used the same actor. It could have been the same character. Who's going to fucking tell the difference?
Right.
Again, it's not like she was getting massive amounts of up close, pretty face time. The fact that this character, and it's the same character conceptually through all of the episodes, right? Which is a female subordinate Bajoran to Miles. I very clearly remember her popping out the first time. This does not seem coincidental that they have someone kind of pretty working with Miles.
Can create some tension, eh?
Let's keep an eye on this one. Something's going to happen here.
So after
she's a real whiz kid, huh?
Yeah. She's smart. She's capable. Keiko gives Miles some shit. He's full defensive, but it's all good. And he drops her off at school, and we finished the teaser with actually her giving the lesson about the wormhole, and that's when Vedek Winn actually arrives out of nowhere, lingers in the back, and then ultimately accuses Keiko of essentially teaching blasphemy by not including the spiritual element of the Bajoran beliefs about the Celestial Temple in her explanation about the wormhole.
Before we get into that too deeply, Keiko giving O'Brien shit about, was it Neela? Is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Neela?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the season 1 next gen at? Where's the loosey-goosey swing time? Where's the Keiko that's just hey, if you want to, go on the holodeck and surfboard on her or whatever, it's cool.
Even in the 24th century, some people like to be monogamous, Peter. It's not everyone's William Riker. Some people like to dial it in.
The portrayal of people, Federation citizens, and Starfleet on Deep Space Nine so starkly contrasts everything we saw in Next Gen. in terms of permissiveness, uh, willfulness towards violence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially later on, like O'Brien's ready to start punching vendors and stuff. So I'm excited to get into that. But like, again, it's interesting viewing DS9 through the lens of next gen and just how different. And to be honest, I mean, it's more realistic. It's a more realistic portrayal of humanity.
Yeah.
People feel less like alien, like humans of the future feel less alien in DS9 than they did in next gen.
And maybe this is the right time to start talking about this topic. In fact, probably is. Deep Space Nine is either beloved or hated by Star Trek fans because of exactly what you're describing. This is the least Roddenberry Trek there is in the Berman era, really. Voyager and Enterprise even try to find their way to better outcomes by the end. Even the Xindi arc involved the Enterprise on the most horrific mission possible, coming to accord an alliance with the man who's responsible for making a device that killed 7 million
Shout out
humans.
Degra.
Yeah. So, but Deep Space Nine, a lot of bad stuff happens and people do bad things and they accept that perhaps it was the correct thing to do in the circumstances in ways that don't happen in Star Trek otherwise. And I like it because it's more real, like you're saying. These are not alien-like perfect humans. These are actually human humans who, when faced with horrific choices, have to engage with that as it is. And there are correct choices to make in those circumstances, and there's no moral good outcome. There's just the least bad. And they have to deal with the consequences of that, but it also means they have flaws. Like Miles wants to punch everybody that insults his wife. I can understand that, right? Like that's something I can connect to as an audience member. It's better that way than if he was somehow immune to the kind of natural rage that a man would feel when, his spouse is insulted in front of him.
Maybe it's just a difference between officers and enlisted. And this is just a classist thing going on here.
I mean, it's kind of hinted at when Neela hits on O'Brien, like his sort of less standoffish manner is probably a huge factor in why people like him.
So Vedek Winn shows up, and I can only assume that Kiko's like, come on, of all the points to walk into my classroom, like,
this is the one
to pick. Were you just out there with the cup against the door listening? Did somehow one of the parents like pass you the syllabus? And
we were doing math 10 minutes ago. I couldn't come then, huh?
You didn't want to come in when we had when we were playing with the guinea pigs? This is you're going to come in right now, huh? You don't want to come in for the coloring or where we're going to make Santa Claus out of elbow macaroni and cotton swabs?
It is interesting that like at Federation education seems to be pretty like wide in age ranges, right? Like Jake's
Little House
older.
on the Prairie, yeah.
Yeah, like Jake's doing different stuff than everyone else, I presume. He's like,
so let me get this straight.
14.
Vedek, you've come in here to cause shit, and your problem is the wormhole, not the fact that I have everybody in here from like kindergarten through 11th grade, and these little kids are getting like sex ed talk or whatever is happening.
It enters into the plot something that we knew was going to be happening because the premiere told us, and that is the Bajoran religion is an intense part of their life. As Sisko will note later, it's the whole reason they're able to resist Cardassian occupation intact. And second, Sisko found their gods. That's a big deal. Like, my religion's real and my gods are out there and they have a wormhole to the other side of the fucking galaxy? Holy shit.
You found heaven.
Yeah, you found it. You traversed it. You negotiated with our gods to allow us to use it.
And you allowed them to create a interstate highway that takes them to the biggest Buc-ee's in the quadrant. I don't know how I feel about you commercializing our heaven. There's
So,
a speed limit through our heaven. That doesn't sound right.
and as Cisco says right after the credits, like, I knew this was going to happen someday, right? Like, it was inevitable that somehow this religious conflict would reach my door, because how could it not, right? But here it is, right? I didn't know how it would happen. I didn't know when it would happen. Here we are. I've got a fundamentalist preacher, which is what essentially Kira describes Vedek Winn as.
Orthodox.
And orthodox. And she's here to enforce orthodoxy when it comes to the understanding and teaching of what the Celestial Temple, aka the Wormhole, is.
Is Vedek a position name?
Yes. So in the religious hierarchy of the Bajorans, it's never spelled out with exactitude, but Vedek would be like cardinal or archbishop. It's like,
and there's 80 some of them, right?
Yeah, it's the level below the Pope, the Kai, and there's like lower level positions, obviously below Vedek. But as they indicate in the episode, Kai Opaka no longer being able to serve as Bajoran spiritual leader because she's on planet Hell with Mike Ementrout.
Because she's a zombie.
There's already a discussion about the next, basically, Kai conclave. And Winn wants to be the Pope, but she probably doesn't have enough support. And she's competing against another character we're going to meet this week, another recurring character, Vedek Bareil, for that position. And Kira outs herself as a fundamentalist herself. She says she supports Kai. If she supports Vedek Winn, and that, you know, the education regarding the wormhole should have a religious element to it, and is content with. She specifically says she's content with Bajoran and Federation interests remaining separate, which is a valid point for her to make, given, you know, the Bajorans are in fact an independent people. They don't have to answer to what the Federation would prefer, and maybe they should have separate schools. It's not an unreasonable thought, but of course Cisco can't allow that because he's trying to keep this whole Bajorans eventually join the Federation thing on track, because otherwise, you know, Picard might kill more members of his family. So can't have that.
Has he had a clear conversation with Kira yet that my objective is to get your planet into the Federation?
No, I don't think he's had a clear conversation with anybody about that.
Very interesting.
It's his mission, but he has not, I think, said it in that many words.
Is that going to be a bridge that they eventually cross in season 2? Like, let's be clear about what my mission is.
It's not so much that he makes the mission clear. It's so much he says, like, you know, he thinks it's for the best that the Bajorans join the Federation, and that's why he's trying to bind them together, because he thinks that it's in their interests, rather than it's my job to make sure this happens. I don't think he ever puts it that way.
I think it's the way it should be put, because, I mean, if you knew that it was your boss's mission to integrate your planet into the Federation, I think a lot of the things he does and a lot of things he says can come off as disingenuous, that you could just rack up a thing like, is that what you feel, or is that what your Federation higher-ups feel? Why are we doing things this way? Is it for the best, or is it just to get the job done?
I feel like him restraining himself and how he expresses this intention is probably correct, because it's also complicated now by this, right? He is now intrinsically linked to the Bajoran spiritual life. He is the emissary of the prophets. First time I think he's really called that as a title, and that's going to become more and more important as time goes on. And so that, in the discomfort of the Federation with that, by the way, becomes such an integral part of this whole meta plot. The Bajorans joining the Federation, what does that look like? How does he resolve these conflicts? I don't think there's really space for him to say, like, well, it was my orders, right? Like, it's not really it. It started that way. It does not end that way.
Quick note. The actress playing Keiko has a cold, and it comes through so glaringly obvious, man. Like, her nose being stuffed in this episode just takes me out of the whole thing. Like, you have not been in an episode since, what, the Space Leprechauns?
That's true. That was the last time we've seen her. If wishes were horses.
Wishes were whores, yeah.
Yeah, horse.
And you're coming back into work sick. Amateur.
Listen, you guys shoot your scenes when you guys shoot your scenes. You don't choose. I'm sure Rosalind Chow would prefer not to be ill, but she is. And so after, we have this kind of introduction to who Vedek Winn is, we do get more of O'Brien and Neela. And we start to set up the other plot.
Cisco going to her, saying, like, I wish I would have known you were coming. You basically snuck in here. You hoodwinked us.
We'll go to that. I want to spend some time on that scene. We're not there yet. So O'Brien and Neela are working in Odo's office, and Neela shows she's a whiz kid. She's able to fix whatever they were going to fix that day before he even got there. And he needs a special tool to be able to lock a security panel. It's an EJ7 interlock, and it's not in his case. And that begins.
Where's my Star T20 at?
Yeah, I need my doohickey for my special sauce.
I can't fix the iPhones without my special screwdriver. It's going to throw my whole side hustle in the trash.
I mean, you called it, right? Like, I wonder if she's going to go evil and join Kai Winn and doing some bad shit.
I like that he is neurotic about his tools. Like, this is not a joking matter to him.
Oh, no.
He knows where he puts his stuff at. And, for obvious reasons, like, the absence of this tool means that somebody could be fucking with the system. Now, clearly we don't care about Quark and his junk drawer full of cologne samples that he uses to hack systems. He just has a perpetual get out of jail for free card. But, my Torx 20 screwdriver, that's a big deal. And we're going to tear this station apart to the point where we're looking for molecular components unique to that screwdriver to see where this thing is.
If only people cared about Starfleet security as much. So Brian and Odo apparently care in this episode all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But after that is when we arrive back at the scene where Cisco goes to pay a visit to Vedek Winn in the Bajoran temple within Deep Space Nine. And they have a strange standoffish conversation where, of course, as usual, Cisco gets his ear held. And Winn acts deferential, calls him the emissary of the prophets, and informs him of his incredibly important place in Bajoran spiritual life as a consequence. She's clearly resentful of this, but in a understated way. And
I love
over the course,
like, her story about, like, I don't know how I felt about this, and an off-worlder being named prophet or emissary, and Opaka basically like, bitch, I don't like your attitude. Go sit in the fucking dark and see if you can, like, find yourself a clue.
Well, there was a particular phrase in this exchange that stuck out to me so hard as a rewatch thought. And it's Opaka told Winn, one should not look one's own gods in the face. Right? That's what she's told her. Like, the reason why Cisco is the person that has to meet the fucking prophets is because our faith puts us in a position where it is impossible for us to meet them. We can't. And she's right. Cisco can deal with them in a way that they never would be able. They would be too differential. They would be falling over themselves because their entire religion is based around worship of them. Cisco doesn't worship them. He can talk to them. He can try and negotiate with them. He can try to figure them out in a way, dispassionately, in a way that Bajorans would not be capable of. And that's the wisdom that Opaka was trying to impart on Winn. To say, you can't look your own gods in the face. You can't do that and retain your faith. It doesn't become faith anymore. Right? It becomes something else, something worse. But Cisco, the outsider, has an opportunity to reach faith as a consequence of his experiences. And wouldn't you know it, Peter? But that phrase, that line, 100% describes the fall of Kai Winn as the show goes on. That line alone, it describes her story arc. You can't look your own gods in the face. And her desperation to somehow not do that and to avoid Opaka's advice is why she ends up doing all the bad shit she ends up doing as the show goes on. It's crazy. It's such a great like seed that they planted here that I really only noticed because we were rewatching it for this show. I don't think I'd ever would have appreciated it.
There's a lot of good talk about Opaka. There's a glaring omission that like, well, we could just go ask her. I know everybody's having a hard time with I know where she's at.
We can still talk. Yeah.
She's not in space heaven. We have to take I-70 through space heaven to get out there, but we can go talk to her right now. I can get you on the planet.
About range. We can go right now. Just call her up.
And as a matter, we could just Uber out there. And I'll tell you what, while we're out there too, if you wanted to be an immortal, I'm just putting it out there. If by any chance you are thinking in your head like, God, I don't want to be a single day older than what I am right now, boy, have I got a deal for you.
There's a place for you. You'll love it.
I love the ear holding stuff because that's going to pay off later.
It just keeps happening.
This is a great episode for Sisko, and this is a very good example, I think, of why this guy got picked to play Sisko. And for as goofy and unhinged as he has been in some of the other episodes, he ties shit together great here, and his energy matches hers well. Like, he reins it in and refocuses it, and the antagonism between the two is good without being like petty and crass.
Oh yeah. No, it's a kind of antagonism where they're both kind of circling each other like sharks, right? They know that they are going to be opposed to each other and they don't trust each other, and yet they have to have this conversation. They can't not have it, right? The politics of this episode is very thick in interpersonal politics in a way that is more micro than macro, and it really works. And Sisko has to go talk to Vedek Winn, and Vedek Winn has to have that conversation with Sisko. She has to respect him as the emissary of the prophets, whether she likes it or not. And he has to respect the power that she has over Bajorans that believe what she believes. So he can't just oppose her like out of hand, and she can't oppose him out of hand. They have to circle each other and have to figure out a way to get to where they want to be through each other's potential actions or mistakes. Excellent. And this is the beginning of that, of them sizing each other up and Winn making it clear she's not backing down, that the school can't exist if it's not going to teach proper Bajoran theology, or at least it can't exist with Bajoran children in it. So go ahead.
Again, Kira Nerys echoing all this stuff really pulls the rug out from underneath Sisko. And
straight up tells them, I don't think you can solve this problem, in a sort of like shitty way too, of like, just like, no, fuck you.
With like, hey, this is what I've been telling you. Like, I told you this, like, here we are, but there have been warning signs out there before. They've had her flip-flop a fair amount this season, and I think Sisko appropriately gives her shit about it. Like, sometimes they're thick as thieves, and sometimes they're at odds, comically so, with the fucking telepathic orbs episode or whatever. But this seems like an appropriate step back, because you know that this is going to be what I assume galvanizes her Team Sisko hard, right?
Oh yeah, I think the last scene of the episode kind of cements that in a very quiet but very firm way, of him coming up to her. It's late, they're in ops. We'll get to that at the end, but that I think is like where their relationship cements and kind of wraps the season up, because I mean, this is a great bookend to Emissary in a lot of ways, because it brings to fruition that specific relationship, which obviously has been the major contention going on here, is Kira versus Sisko. Is the first ally Sisko is going to make has to be Kira, or nothing else is going to work. And it's him slowly kind of getting her trust and getting her to do that. If Duet was a huge step in that direction, then this kind of finishes the job.
Duet was good in him proving to her that he was worth listening to. And this episode is her being her loyalty being betrayed by her faith and realizing that she is going to have to start making some real decisions on her own.
Like faith that we know as viewers is extremely important to her. Because based on her conversations with in reaction to Opaka's, demise on Planet Murder, just absolutely core to her being. So this really is this episode is able to kind of turn that ship more, and it pays off all everything we've seen between that, the episode with the farmer on the moon, and everything else where this relationship is built and she's learned to kind of get on Team Cisco. So, but we do have more whodunit, and that is the search for the missing tool. And apparently an Ensign Aquino has not reported for duty. And when they find him, they find a melted tool and unfortunately a mostly evaporated person on the tool. And the theory that they have is that this poor guy went and tried to repair a power conduit at 4:00 in the morning, borrowed O'Brien's tool to be able to do it, and then it turned back on and basically melted him.
Well, listen, that's called bad lockout tagout.
Yes, that is an OSHA violation up and down.
That is why these rules are in place. The
Cardassian technology is not made with OSHA rules in mind, and it's actually explicitly said several times this season.
You see, the problem is, sir, there's no lockout tagout point. You physically cannot get the padlock anywhere. The computer just turned itself back on. The absolute lack of fucks that they give about this dead Starfleet guy. Every other episode, a member of Starfleet dies, and like, fuck, man, I used to play poker with this guy. He'd sit across from me at the mess hall. I was in his wedding. Warm feelings, at least on the flagship.
Is when we were in the Maquis,
yeah. Flagship, right? Strong camaraderie there. Voyager, you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere with people for the rest of your life, probably. You get close there. DS9, the truck stop, 0 fucks given. Not a single shed tear, not even like a gasp and a grasp for the pearls. They're just like, all right, well, okay. So this guy's full vaporized. Cisco doesn't care that he has to like have the talk with the family at home on Earth.
No one knew him. That's even like a whole scene. Like no one knew the guy.
Awful place to work.
Never shaking the allegations.
Yeah, this is a real... We're going to have to get some skits in on DS9 because this is...
Yeah, we skipped on skits season 1. I think we had an idea for one late of like where we'd play crew members who are increasingly concerned by the instability of our workplace.
We'll get there.
I think we're getting there.
Don't show the playbook.
I think we can get there. Sorry to our fans who expected to skip the season.
There's just too much stuff to talk about.
We're too engrossed. Too engrossed in the episodes.
Too busy for shticks. This is an excellent plot. And all too often, the whodunits, murders, or whatever, I think are very two-dimensional and boring. And this one, it's good the whole way through. There's a lot of misdirection. Unfortunately, I think they tipped their hand a little early that Neela, the would-be femme fatale, is too closely attached to this. But I think the obvious nature of her culpability makes it more fun to watch O'Brien because he likes her as a subordinate and he's going to have to be faced with the fact that she's dirty. And I guess if there's one thing I would have liked to see out of this episode, it would have been like an admission of O'Brien that like he's into her. And I don't know if I want to.
There wasn't. I mean, they kind of they went down that road for a moment. I don't think they necessarily had a lot of space in the episode because, they had to speed run it with this newer actress that had only shown up once before. I think if they had had the opportunity maybe to flesh this out the way they intended with this actress and have 3 episodes where you could have like built that camaraderie, and maybe then in that moment is more of a like instead of just a moment of him being uncomfortable because she's kind of flirting with him and he just was like, oh, danger zone, don't want any of that. It's more like they had that sort of easy respect with each other, and he finds himself actually momentarily more interested in her than than he thought, and he still refuses because he's a married man who values his relationship with his wife, but rather than a sort of like, whoop, like, that was a little bit too friendly, you're out of here. I agree, it would have been better.
Give me the scene where he sleeps with her and it's weighing heavy on his conscience and he's gonna have to come clean to his wife. But then
I think that's too much for Trek. I mean,
but then she gets killed in the assassination attempt, and it alleviates his requirement to come clean about it, and it eats him up for a season.
He's going to suffer enough. You're too BSG there. Like,
well, listen,
we discussed when we did Dax. Like, Trek writers, particularly in this era, they very much do not believe in infidelity. Infidelity is a terrible thing. Yeah. And I think if you make O'Brien actually, a philanderer, then you take away a lot of sympathy that the audience is going to have for him, possibly forever. So I agree there could have been more space there for a little bit more danger zone flirting, but instead of that just being just a moment of like, nope, haha, bye. Like, that still works. It gets across like that they had a genuine sort of friendship.
I'm going to submit my counter argument, which is Robin Christopher's headshot on the IMDb.
Is it a very attractive headshot?
Oh, very. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're going to cheat on your wife who's making you eat fish eyes or whatever the hell, this is the one to do it with.
So
if you're going to sleep with a terrorist, it's this one.
After this next piece of the whodunit, we have O'Brien walking Keiko to school. Suddenly, Jumja sticks are not for sale. O'Brien immediately goes to punch the man because he's a violent animal who's murdered people. And Odo just happens by and he's like, "Hey, no crimes. You're not Worf. You're not getting away with it." and he has to let him go. And Keiko, he's trying to calm him down, and he's like immediately like, "I'll transfer us off the station. Fuck these motherfuckers." Like, he goes from 0 to fuck this place the moment that Keiko is insulted in any way,
saved everybody's life on this dump at least 2 times so far.
Right, and I'm not even counting all the times I saved the galaxy when I was on the fucking flagship. Fuck these people.
I'm talking about just while I've been here.
And they wander, of course, in front of the school, and who should be there but Vedek Winn with all of the Bajoran families, children and parents included, and have a very interesting showdown where we already kind of talked about Vedek Winn has to appear normal. That's the interpersonal politics here. She has to appear like she's being reasonable. And if everyone likes Keiko, and that's evidently the read of the room, then she has to try and, quote, compromise with her to put herself in a position where she can continue to oppose the school. Because if she doesn't do that, she seems unreasonable. But she has to create the right things to say that are, quote, compromises, end quote, that she knows Keiko won't accept because she's a Federation citizen, which, of course, is a lot of this conflict in the end. We'll be getting to more of that explicitly here soon, but, maybe don't talk about the Celestial Temple at all. Just avoid the topic if you can't have the prophets in the classroom. And she just says, "I am a teacher. I teach facts, science, math, history, literature. So I will teach about the facts of this incredibly important discovery that will be important to the Bajoran civilization forever from a very specific perspective. Your job is to talk about the spiritual element. My job is to tell them there's a stable wormhole here that uses a particular kind of novel particle to allow it to remain stable to provide transportation to the other side of the galaxy. And that's important." Perfect, right? Because in the end, her refusal is what Winn wanted. And she got it.
You can see where Kira's coming from, though. Like, explaining the magic away of your religion. it's an interesting dilemma for the Bajorans to have to address.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm curious, like, if her curriculum pops back up down the road, because like legit problems, legit hurdles are being identified here. And I think by not really addressing those, you're kind of doing a disservice to the episode. Like, how do they bridge that gap? Is it just like, okay, well, the enlightened Federation technocracy is going to have its way, and we're going to explain how your religious magics work with tachyon particles or whatever. Like, yeah, there might not have been a problem with this stuff before, but once she's over there assembling lynch mobs, like, cat's out of the bag now.
I think the literal answer to that is Cisco, but also it happens to be in this episode that Cisco kind of, in his conversation with Jake, really crystallizes, I think, like a very reasonable perspective for the enlightened atheist federation to have. You know, where it's like when this happens, school ends up only being like the 5 Federation kids that are there. And after that wraps up and they have another discussion about the whodunit, where O'Brien is suspicious of this official story of this guy getting zapped because he took one of his tools. And he's just like, that's just not something you do when you work as an engineer.
You don't touch the chief's shit.
Yeah, which is like a naval thing, right? Like it's
That's
great.
how,
like
that's how people come into your bunk late at night with the soap and socks.
Yeah, like you don't fuck with another man's tools in Starfleet. You don't touch them without permission. That does not happen.
You think you can just replicate Torque's 20 bits? Like, no, that's a big deal.
But after that, Jake comes in and has one of those seminal Trek conversations with Cisco in his office, where Jake is very much I can't believe the Bajorans are so stupid as to believe that the wormhole aliens are prophets. To which Cisco has to say, like, first and foremost, this religion's important to them, and never forget that. It's how they survived 50 years of brutal oppression. And second, those aliens, they see the past as easy as they see today. Who's to say they aren't prophets? Like, they are on a different level of existence than we can comprehend. I have experienced this personally. I don't know what you call what I had, but a religious experience could be an adequate description, right?
They showed me your mom.
You showed you your mom. I had orbs, magic orbs. That place is Azeroth, son. Like, have you seen it? Magic shit seems to happen there a lot. I sent the chief and the doctor down there and they fought a demon. Like, let's all back off for a second with the whole, oh, this is all explainable through science. Motherfucker, is it? Like, is it really? And he brings that up to say, like, not only is this not the attitude that we should have as the enlightened federation of denigrating people's religions, because that's just makes us as bad as the people who, imprisoned Galileo and burned his books, but also, have we considered that they're right? Like, that these things, whatever they are better described as gods than mere aliens.
It's another great scene by Jake and Cisco. This kid continues to hold up his end of the scenes excellently, and I continue to enjoy Cisco behind closed doors with his son being a very different person than what you're getting standing in ops talking to his subordinates.
As it is in real life, right?
Sure, but the father-son moments that they're having, I mean, all the other examples are basically dog shit, but like this is premier Federation or Star Trek family. In the school scenes, Nog wasn't in class still, right?
Correct. Nog does not go to school. Nog is getting educated on the side by Jake.
On the DL, yeah.
Yeah, I'm teaching my boy how to read. So yeah, he's getting educated, but he's not going to the school.
So what are we down to the garden next?
So next is, yes, the garden. You are correct. So Cisco comes to the conclusion that I'm going to need some help in dealing with this problem. So he, in fact, decides to Hearthstone to Azeroth and have a discussion with a different religious leader, the other recurring character that makes his debut here, and that is one Vedek Bareil. Bareil is seen as the guy most likely to succeed Kai Opaka as the next Bajoran Pope. He is a more, I guess we'd call it, reasonable spiritual leader. Certainly very faithful man, but more realistic. First and foremost, he doesn't grab Sisko's ear. And they have a whole discussion about that.
Despite the fact Sisko offers, which that's the first time you see that. And this guy says that's a power play. It's bullshit. I don't subscribe to it, and I've made it my life to stop this condescending practice, which I think kind of puts Opaka in an unfair light because she was very nice and chill, and she likes grabbing ears.
You know, it's
apparently this guy was basically molested.
Ear molested.
It's big
by
deal. It's
by priests.
Big problem on
okay.
Ferengi. All right, you're laughing, but this is a
all
serious
offense. All these Ferengi keep joining our religion since this. Quark said something, and they just keep showing up. They're so kind.
Their problem is every time they take communion, they just jizz in their pants, and the whole chapel stinks.
So Bareil, he gives off a sort of like if Winn is Pope Benedict, then he's Pope Francis, right? Like he's the more chill, a little bit more connected with the people. He still does the thing that he did when he originally like became a monk, which is tend to the garden. So he's like still doing something he was doing as an initiate because he's doesn't put on airs the same way his clothes even like convey that. Like Winn has very like ornate religious clothing, and his is much more humble, much more monkish. And he, though, delivers some very real talk to Sisko to say, yeah, okay, Winn's a problem. Okay, I get it.
I want to go completely off topic here for a second because of the oranges and the yellows of his shirt. I was going to make a comment about candy corn, which brings us back to Voyager.
It does. Candy corn tragedy.
The number of memes that I'm seeing right now that are calling her out for candy corn color. Was that a joke?
No.
Has that been a joke?
No.
Am I allowed to feel seen?
Yeah, I think you're allowed to feel seen. We discovered, much to our surprise, that more people listen to our show than we thought. We came to this conclusion that maybe we have more influence than we thought when we were watching
I'm going to pat
Lower
myself
Decks.
on the back right now. The candy.
Yeah.
You and I'm going to say it right now. That was our idea.
It was our idea. We were one like joke in that Lower Decks episode about a workplace shooting or Joe Carey smoking weed in the cargo bay. From truly like say, ha! You motherfuckers.
Again, it's Halloween. I'm seeing this candy corn talk, and I'm like, hey, that's us.
But Bareil says, I want to be a friend to you, Sisko, but I'm gonna be a better friend to you when I'm Kai, and I'm only gonna be Kai if I don't involve myself in this right now. Very real talk.
I like that he has a history as a gardener, and he did not want to advance, or so he says. Like,
yeah,
neat
a man of genuine faith. Guy. Yeah,
and my utter surprise that by the end of this, he does not actually die, because it really seemed like they're propping this guy as like a great option, and like, man, if only he had won the Pope race and not Kai Winn, great things could have happened. And sadly, he died, but I like that they let him live. So Sisko calls him out on this shit too, and it's like, oh, they're apparently teaching you a lot of politics down here. And the guy's like, yeah, well, tough shit. Feel free to enjoy my beautiful garden, sunny Southern California here, and then you can get the fuck out whenever you're done.
Hey, listen, everything's political in the end, especially religious institutions. So Bareil basically saying, yeah, well, prophets teach you patience, my pedigree chum. Like, yep. I'm just telling you, like, I get what you need right now, and I can't give it to you. All right, you're gonna have to.
Short of someone bombing the school, I have no reason to go to that space station. Cut to DS9.
Let me know if there's a terrorist attack. I'll be right on it. Oh, run, Raggy. So he, heads back up to the station. and he's a little upset because there's some Bajorans who are skipping work, and Kira's obviously still kind of wavering. He's got a snap or two, saying like, "Listen, I'm running this fucking place, so your Bajoran friends better be at work on a double, or they're going to be reassigned."
She's like, listen, the handbook clearly says they get 32 hours of paid sick time. He's like, I don't care. She's like, but ODJFS, BWC. And he's like, it's 3 weeks to get out here. All right. Let them send their inspectors. I want to see Federation compliance, like Federation HR comes out to like scold him on something, and the person makes a 3-week flight out there only to end up in the middle of like a terrible space dilemma and quickly realizes that maybe the rules don't apply out here after all. They want to go back to Earth right now.
Get the fuck out of here. What is this nonsense? This haunted Buc-ee's.
Like, that'll be our skit. Buc-ee's. That'll be our skit, right? One guy is already stuck out there as a punishment assignment. The other guy is sent out from Starfleet HR to go reprimand Cisco. There's a terrible accident. Someone gets nuked in a fucking hallway, and they're like, you've been reassigned. You are here now. And they're like, fuck!
Perfect.
I'm not an engineer.
No, they have to handle HR issues now, and that's why they have to handle all of this. Like, you've been reassigned to work HR at DS9, and it's like,
why are you handing me a gun? What do I need a phaser for?
Like, what's this? What do you mean the security chief's made of goo? What do you mean there are assaults every week? What do you mean I'm on a doom level? It's bullshit. So, back in the episode, they go back to talking about the whodunit after Bashir shows up and says, yeah, listen, the poor ensign who knew and knew, apparently he didn't just get evaporated by a plasma coil. He got shot first. And they have a further discussion about this where apparently he got shot at runabout pad C. That's where he actually went. That's where his key card was saying he was going when he hit the turbo lift. And then his body was disposed of using the power conduit there. So this is a murder. Why was he there?
Very Lon Suitor to shove him in the wall.
Oh, yeah. Definitely the Lon Suitor maneuver. Actually, much more successful because the entire body was, in fact, incinerated. But can't beat Bashir's apparently ability to see some microbes and be like, I am genetically enhanced, so I know.
Here's what we did. I took a little scraping of his char and I put it in the goo bath and I regrew him.
I asked him, what the fuck were you? Unfortunately, because it was the only little bits that were left over, he was kind of retarded. So all he could say was, runabout.
Go ahead and cut that out.
Can't do that. Fuck.
Luckily, because nobody cares that he died, Cisco still hadn't informed the parents. So he is reported for duty and we're going to pretend everything is fine.
We're just act like this never happened.
We told him that he got sick with a Husnak flu.
Yeah, we put him in a Bacta tank, and that's why he had all this goo around him.
And, he just doesn't remember things because he had a really high fever. So the problem is taking care of itself.
What I'm saying is that we're going to cover up all of our deaths using this goo bath thing. All right? Like, just be prepared.
Forget about post-mortem revival techniques. We just...
Goo clone them. Goo clone them all day.
Just go the Dr. Venture way and just new Hank, new Dean every episode.
So after we have this element enter into the chat, this is where Neela and O'Brien go to check out the runabout pad, see what's going on there. Comes back clean. That's when they sit down, they chit-chat, talk about how the Bajorans and the Starfleet people don't talk to each other. And he's like, well, you're not like that. And he's like, well, she hits on him like, well, you're special and you're fun and I'm going to smile at you. And he's going to stand up uncomfortably and say, why don't you head out? And she's like, are you sure? Because I'm hitting on you. Yeah. She's like, yeah, I'm real sure. Get out.
Some of these Starfleet guys, like, I don't know, I could probably kill, but you, I wouldn't kill you. What'd you just say? Sorry, it's been a long day at work. I'm gonna go.
I like you. You know, we both have killed Cardassians. Like, I'm attracted to that.
I assume you've killed Starfleet officers too. I mean, all those transports. It's impossible. Everyone was successful, right?
So
you tell me you didn't nuke anybody?
After that is when we get our brief moment of Quark and Odo for the episode. True requirement.
It is, and it's brief, and I want to be salty there's not more of it, but like they've just been consistently so much screen time and killing it. Like you finally got a solid, like great episode. Okay, you guys can have a break. You don't have to carry this one on your back.
Or the one before either. So Odo goes to talk to Quark. Quark is like, what's with all these Bajorans? Do I need to get more Dabo girls? And it's like, that's a religious thing. And he's like, yeah, I definitely need more Dabo girls. They love the Dabo girls. And it doesn't really have anything to do with the topic, because what Odo wants to talk about is, hey, do you know anyone who do you know anything about the death of this poor Starfleet ensign? And I really like this interaction because Quark is like, I'm wounded, Odo. I am not a killer, right? Like, if there's bad things happening on the station, I understand why you're going to suspect me, but a murder, really? Like, I don't murder people. And he's like, yeah, but you don't know all of the murderers. Like, you're a criminal, so you know them. He's like, you know what? Yes, I do. But none of them have talked about this. I'd tell you. I'd sell them out. If one of them killed a Starfleet officer, I'd fucking tell you that. I want that smoke. Are you kidding me? Like, you know how many crimes I've committed on this station? Cisco could throw me in jail at any time. So, yeah, if one of them killed a Starfleet officer, I'd fucking tell you. But I don't. I don't know anything about it. And he goes, well, keep your ears to the ground. He's like, that's the 7th rule of acquisition. Cool. Glad to have that reference. And he goes and leaves. That's the only scene with Quark. And O'Brien then shows up at the same table and says, hey, got a problem here. I was checking runabout pad C. Didn't find anything. So I just checked everything. And I found the security lockout chip at runabout pad A. And they come to the conclusion that what may have happened is that when this ensign came to fix this thing he saw and got surprised by who was there and murdered, that whoever did the murdering after disposing of the body actually went to the different runabout pad so as to cover their tracks of whatever the fuck they were up to. So
this is like the smartest bad guy stuff that I think you can really see in Star Trek. Like, Neil is playing on Seska levels of intelligence.
Yeah, yeah, she had a fucking plan here, and it wasn't a bad one. And Odo and
O'Brien
have to be pretty sharp to figure it out, you know?
Well, sadly, they don't have a chance to really celebrate before the bombs go off. Now, you could burn a school, you could spray paint the school up, you could jimmy the door so it doesn't open correctly, or you could have a small tactical nuke that
just absolutely like huge plasma flame, like real deal explosivo.
Like an explosion that I think realistically probably should have penetrated the hull and like just depressurized the promenade and killed a lot of people.
It's a nice effect. O'Brien, of course, wants to run into the flames to rescue his wife, but fortunately his wife is not in there. And in the aftermath of this, we have a charred remains of the school. Kira says, like, these were commonly available explosives, so apparently the commonly available explosives on Bajor are no joke.
They slap.
But apparently, I guess, like, it is a planet full of people who were terrorists not too long ago, less than a year ago, as we'll find out. And so maybe they're really good at bombs. Like, they're real boutique bomb makers, really, like small batches, you know, like true artisanal bombs. There.
So let me get this straight. Let me get this straight. Bajoran's washing machines run on TNT.
Every Bajoran has max 300 Goblin engineering. I'm just saying.
And
we were talking about
on the wash machine. There's a special stain detergent thing, and that's where you're putting glycerin in. I don't know. It's terrible.
Maybe everything shouldn't be a bomb, guys. We considered that. So. This is, of course, when Vedek Winn makes a strategic appearance, being like, oh, is Mrs. O'Brien okay? You know, just feigning all of this concern. Cisco, this is where, you know, she needs to get Cisco to do something to make it reasonable for her to oppose him. So she feigns the concern about how terrible it is. Cisco's like, "This is your fucking fault," and she's like, "Are you accusing me of being responsible for this act of terrorism?" And he goes, "That's as the prophet, as the emissary of the prophets." He goes, "I am the commander of the station, and I'm accusing you of it." And she's like, "Oh, may the prophets forgive you for abandoning them." She does the perfect put upon religious leader shit that you can imagine in this spot. Like somebody who's got some experience in the religious world and knows how that shit works wrote this faux show. And Winn gets where she wants to be with it, where she gets to lay down a great line, actually, where, in her opposition to Cisco and the Federation overall, she says, "Now I see that you want nothing less than to destroy us. You live without a soul, Commander. You and your Federation exist in a universe of darkness, and you would drag us in there with you, but we will not go." So this is direct opposition to Federation atheism. Like, not I am putting down a marker that my goal is to prevent Bajor from joining the Federation because you're godless.
Joke's on you, bitch. All these guys already been through the transporter. Ain't nobody have a soul up in this motherfucker.
Ever beam anywhere? Neither do you. Like,
You want to hear about godless? Wait till I show you this transporter manifest. All of this is to lure nice guy out of his garden. He gets Cisco on the horn. He's like, "Hey, I'm coming up to visit. Thanks for the invite." And Cisco's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll see you in a little bit." And the ship docks, and the crowd's out there ready to greet this guy. I notice Morn is right up at the front,
oh
trying
yeah,
to touch this dude.
yeah. Morn's all about it, man. Everyone wants to meet like the Bajoran Elvis, I guess. I don't know what this guy like. He's got a following, and he is. People are coming to see him, and they basically just it's very religious, very like trying to I don't know. There's definitely like a Christ like figure type of thing they're trying to do with this with Belial.
Meanwhile,
And
the who done it is coming together quickly. Uh, O'Brien's putting two and two together, and it's clear that the only person that this could be is Neela, and he's struggling with it because he doesn't want it to be true.
we did see a scene where this was confirmed in advance, and we start to get some lingering shots of Neela in the background of stuff. Because after the bombing speech, Neela and Winn lock eyes, and then there's a scene when Neela goes to visit Winn in the Bajoran temple within DS9, where you want to talk about Winn at her most sinister, where Winn starts to like take the mantle as biggest fucking villain of Star Trek. It's her going like, "Yeah, so my plan to escape is busted because they found my security hack to get a runabout." And she's like, "Well, some sacrifices will be required, child." And he's like, "No, they're going to execute me after this. You understand that, right? Like I'm going to kill, I'm going to die for this." And she's just like, "Yeah, this is yours is a sacrifice I am willing to accept." Right? Like just takes her and it's like, "No, yes, you will die for the cause, child. Do you not understand?" Like straight up, like she is behind it. She is doing all of these things and she is willingly going to send this fucking kid to the wolves to commit a capital crime on her behalf, and she knows exactly what's happening and she is behind it.
Not
It's
even
just
like, "Hey, once I'm in charge, I'll get you off the hook."
no, just like, "You're gonna die for this. That's absolutely true. You're fucked. But die for your religion. Get your 37 virgins or however many it's supposed to be or whatever. 72 virgins." I love like they hint and indicate and suggest her villainy, and then they have that scene, and it's like, "Nah, this bitch is absolutely as raw as you thought. She is a right cunt." Right? Like she is awful. So, but yeah, so Brian figures it out as this visit goes on. Belial makes his move to like kind of force Wynn's hand to make peace and deal with the consequences of this bombing. He's positioning her politically in a fashion she can't refuse. And the whole point of this is to set up Neela to basically gun Belial down in front of everybody.
O'Brien figures out that they've disabled the gun sensors. Great slow motion shot where all the players are in place.
Yeah,
We
very
just
like in
watched.
the line of fire. It reminded
Mhm.
me of like that kind of shit.
This last episode duet we just watched, the nice guy gets stabbed in the back and die in the promenade. The promenade is a great place to die. Many people have been
Evidently,
vaporized there. Many people
yeah.
have had their lives threatened there. It's a very dangerous part of the station, actually. Um, Slow motion shot of her pulling it out, Cisco running to tackle her. And again, I was genuinely surprised that she misses her shot.
And it was missed because she got jostled at the last second. They even show it where she had the shot lined up, and then her hand gets bumped up by a bystander, and she misses Barile because of that, and she doesn't get a second shot because Cisco goes in for the full body tackle to take her down.
And she does not repent on the way out. She
Heard
says,
the call of the
yeah,
prophets.
yep, fuck you, I'm out. See you guys later. We're going to go check out what Bajoran prison's like. And I don't know, maybe the Executor too. Who knows?
They close the loop when Cisco goes, oh, I guess there is a really important confrontation here, and as Akira, having seen all of this, rolls up immediately. Like Barile just leaves. Like fuck this. Like exits
It's
without
not
another
safe
word.
here. This was a mistake. I
This was a
guess
bad.
I learned nothing about Opaka dying on her trip to Deep Space Nine. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
And then Kira then just makes a beeline for Winn and just lays it out explicitly right to her face, which is exactly the move you'd expect Kira to make. It's just her character is that way. Like this was all set up. You did this to get him. All of this was to get him on the station so you could assassinate him, so you could become Kai. That's what this was entirely about. It was nothing about the school or the. All of this was made up because you wanted to assassinate one of your fellow political leaders, religious leaders. Fuck you. Fuck you. I see you. Fuck you. You did this. Fuck you. I know you did this. And she doesn't say anything and walks away.
Part of me might be like, hey, jump to conclusions, Matt, but Kira's a real smart cookie. Kira is at home in the element of tricky guerrilla warfare. And I don't think it's that big of an ask for the audience to believe that Kira could figure this plan out just like that. Kira's character traits through season 1 have been, I see where this is going, I just don't want to believe it yet.
Right.
And that's happened many times, and I'm wondering if this is going to be the straw that breaks her back, and like season 2, if her eyes are open and willing to accept the truth a little easier than they have been in this season.
I think that's true, actually. I think that as I consider her character arc and growth, all of this was an important for her maturation period. And the last scene kind of crystallizes this in a way with details that really help. We find out that this first season of DS9 took 7 months. So that's how long all of these episodes took to have it happen. Pretty much right on that once a pay period pace that we like to appreciate around here. One space hazard a pay period. And Kira, she says a year ago I was fighting the Cardassians in some godforsaken swamp. And then a year later, I have a uniform on. I'm in a space station. I'm guarding the Celestial Temple. Like, what is happening? What is my life? I don't know what normal is. I haven't experienced normal in years, And you get context for this has all happened very fast for her, for Bajor, and she's still trying to
I was
make
stuck in
sense
a
of it all.
board game 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, this has been a lot, and Cisco is sympathetic. They're on the same page. Finally, he knows he's on the same page, and he goes listen, get some rest. I got a fucking report to do anyway. And she's like, why don't I help you? And it's where she stops and says, Commander, I don't think you're the devil. And he says, maybe we've made some progress. And she gives him a smile, right? Of okay, you know what? we've done a lot. Why don't we just be friends from this point forward? Why don't you and I, we're going to do this. You and I are going to do this. Like, whatever the fuck is going on, it's you and me, we're fucking doing this. And that's where the season ends. And I think it's a perfect note to end on because they were the first people to meet on DS9. So let's end it with them two having a conversation.
Contrast a episode about school curriculum with space friendship is magic on Voyager, where Neelix's cheese endangers the crew.
I know, right? Like,
while you're doing new Starfleet.
Yeah, not competitive. Not competitive at all.
Big differences.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to Odo having yet another obvious kill against him as security chief. But they squeaked this guy out. I would call this a great episode. I would say, I don't know if I would say great. I would say this is good, if not great. I would say Duet certainly was great. And even if it's not a great episode, it's an excellent episode and an excellent bookend for the season.
I consider both this and Duet to be excellent episodes. Obviously, I think more of Duet as a singular piece of dramatic acting and presentation of an otherwise complex story that goes beyond Trek as a medium. But when we were talking about doing DS9 and I was thinking about season 1, I'm like, really, these two episodes are excellent. And I thought that, you got some weakness here, just like you do with any season 1, but you just end so strong, and Emissary was great too. So we'll talk more about this when we do our rip, obviously. So I don't want to go too deep into it, but the highs were pretty high and the lows were not that low. Save maybe the telepathic orbs.
Forsaken.
Even the wishes were horses had fun in it in a way that made me enjoy what we were doing. So, we might as well tell people what we're going to watch, not necessarily next week, but the next time we have a regular episode. The next episode regular episode we're going to watch is actually going to be Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 1, The Homecoming. Kira rescues a Bajoran resistance hero from a Cardassian labor camp. An extremist group calls for all non-Bajorans to leave Bajor. Part 1 of 3. Season premiere.
Is RoboCop involved in this?
We start... RoboCop is not involved, but we start with a 3-part season premiere. So we're going to be off to the races right away when we come back to DS9. In the meantime, you can expect our rip next week. We'll almost certainly do it live on Thursday, though we'll put out something as soon as possible here to erase any doubt of that, and will therefore be into your podcast feed a day or two later. And as per our usual arrangement, Peter and I are going to put out a couple of our Patreon episodes, particularly our reviews of Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock, as we bank up some additional episodes and prepare for the next season of DS9. Our Voyage Home review, which I have neglected to finish editing, I do apologize. That will be up for our patrons soon. We won't put that out right away so that it can be exclusive to our patrons for a while, but you'll see that on the Patreon feed here shortly. So thank you, everybody, so much for joining us on our journey through DS9, especially all of our new listeners. We hope you'll stick around, and we'll see you next week.